Greetings from Nairobi, from Strathmore Business School. Today we had a workshop on the Global Reporting Initiative, bringing in Enrique Torres from Amsterdam. The workshop lasted 2 days, and I'm head of the consortium, which is teaching and training people on GRI, G4 guidelines right across sub-Saharan Africa. My pleasure today to have welcomed Bob Munro, who has been a tireless anti-corruption campaigner in Nairobi for nearly 30 years. And he's going to say a few words to the group. Interesting enough, and not so known about Bob. Bob is the founder of MISA, the Matara Youth and Sports Association. He's done a fantastic job in taking hundreds of thousands of kids out of poverty through sport. But he got into that by working on the subject of this workshop, believe it or not, in the early 70s in the Stockholm Conference, when he started working on the environmental issues and realized that problems of environment were not just solely greening issues, but also socioeconomic issues, the sorts of things we cover in corporate social responsibility and in sustainability reporting. So Bob is going to talk a little bit about that, and also about his history working for the Brundtland Commission, where he was very senior, and allegedly could be said to have been one of the originators of the word sustainability.
Maybe I'll just give a few overview comments, because I was at Stockholm in '72, which was the world's first global environmental conference. Maurice Strong was then the Secretary General, and I was one of his advisors, although I was working for the UN in Geneva at the time. I was seconded to the Secretariat. We tackled a whole range of issues at Stockholm, made a huge impact on raising the awareness of the real issues out there. But it wasn't until a decade later, because what was happening was that and it's related to your sustainability report, what was happening was that environment ministries were set up, but then and often still today, it was the junior ministers who were put in charge. So it was basically marginalized, and I said, now we've got an environment department, we're dealing with those issues. And then government went on as usual. Then another subversive friend of mine, Jim McNeil, was then heading up the new environment director in OECD in the late 80s. And with some other friends, we put together a report for OECD showing that the decisions and actions of OECD were significantly affecting environmental conditions in the South, and vice versa. And so we called it, in typical OECD fashion, economic and ecological interdependence, one of those jargon terms. But behind that then became the basis for the Brundtland Commission, which in '84, that was converted into a small document called Mandate for Change and became the brief for the Brundtland Commission. And what it brought to the table, which is what you're discussing today, is a completely different view of how we deal with these issues. And that was that the problems are not of nature or in nature, that the source of environmental problems is what? Policies, bad energy policy, bad industry policy, bad agricultural policy. So the problem, there was a cartoon in 1970 on Earth Day by Walt Kelly, who did the Pogo cartoons, and it shows Pogo looking in a mirror with this sort of environmental degradation around us. And he says, we have met the enemy, and it's us. Beautiful. And that we are the source of our own problems, that our governments with their bad policies. So here you had, and that's what Brundtland addressed, like in a company, I have a cartoon from the New Yorker introducing two young people to a bunch of guys in suits, and he's saying, this is Jessica and Frederick, they're going to be our new environmental hand wringers. the cosmetic approach to dealing with the environment. So here we had environment departments, underfunded, very little political clout, and meanwhile, business as usual in all the other departments who were causing the problems that the environment department was supposed to address, isn't it? It's not sustainable. So what Brundtland brought on the table was that sustainability was a way of doing business as a government, that you don't have your economic development plan with a section on environment. And you know where we first did that? Mauritius. World Bank, I was on a World Bank mission there in the late 80s. And then also in Seychelles. Seychelles became the first country in the world and went to the Rio Earth Summit with an economic development plan where they didn't have a chapter on environment. You know what? Environment was in every chapter, in energy, in agriculture. So that's what you're talking about here, isn't it? You're talking about that it's not just a matter of reporting, it's a whole way of doing business as a company. So when you get to issues like, and I liked your phrase of saying do you wash your dirty linen in public? When I started fighting corruption in football in the late 90s, late 90s, 2000, 2001, I can't tell you how many times people came up to me and said, Bob, you shouldn't be washing dirty linen in public. You know what I told them? You're missing the point. We're not supposed to have dirty linen in the first place. That's the point, isn't it? I made a deal with the kids in 1987 when I saw them playing with their Juala ball. So I said, any organized sports here? I said, no. I grew up in a small town. Our fathers organized our baseball in the summer and our ice hockey in the winter. So this is a payback. I always appreciate that. So, okay, my turn to pay them back. So we started, but the deal was, if you do something, I'll do something. And if you do nothing, I'll do nothing. Good, tough love deal, huh? Big mistake. I had no idea their capacity to do things and their determination to do things once they had a bit of an organizational structure and some goals. One of the most exciting things and revelations in my life. These kids in the slums running off with this organization saying, we're doing something, your turn. Didn't protect me at all. And that's the beauty of MISA. And I realized then, within a couple of years, that if I could keep that organization in existence for 4 or 5 years, it would generate its own leadership, which it has. And everyone on the staff have been in MISA since they were 8, 9 years old. But you referred to boys. MISA is owned and run by the youth. I'm an advisor. We have 16 zones with executive committees, and each zone running them. Then we have a sports council and a community service council, because it's very much a part of our, and then we have the executive council. There's over 100 elected leaders. 50% of them are female. Okay, I think we're probably the most gender balanced sports organized, and it's as purposeful. Why? Because as teenagers, frankly, I think it applies to Kenya generally, but certainly in Mathare, the girls, by the time they're 11, 12, they have big responsibilities at home looking after things. So the girls are far more mature, years ahead of the boys when it comes to leadership and sobriety in the organization. So one of the best things we did was to move in that direction. So MISA's real leadership and policy-making body is equally boys and girls.
You've just heard Bob Munro speaking at a Global Reporting Initiative seminar here at Strathmore Business School. And he was covering issues, as you heard, of anti-corruption, MISA, and sustainability. So thank you very much for your attention, and come to one of our trainings one day. Thank you.